Are you in the process of having to co-parent with a narcissist? Maybe your narcissistic ex-partner, you're struggling to be able to get onto a common ground of like understanding like what's actually true, what's right, like how do I actually navigate this thing that's happening between him and the kids now? Like you're wondering maybe can narcissists actually co-parent? Like is this even possible considering like how self-centered a lot of narcissists are? Like how are you actually navigating co-parenting while also prioritizing the kids' well-being? Because that can be a difficult topic as well as we touch into this. So we're going to dive into a little bit of co-parenting with a narcissist, narcissist ex-partner, how that looks, because it's incredibly challenging. We've talked to many people that have struggled with this piece of trying to co-parent with a toxic person because they're self-centered, because they're manipulative, because all these things will impact not just you, but also your children as well. So we're going to dive into some of this dynamics so you understand a little bit more about it. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, change, and development. I'm the founder of Raw Motivations, the creator of the NARC app, and your guide in the 45-day Clarity Challenge you can access at claritychallenge.net. One of the top things that we hear from a lot of times is people asking about co-parenting. How do you do this? How do you actually work with a narcissist when you can't go no contact, when you share kids, when you have to have some back and forth communication? How do you navigate it? So let's dive in and let's talk about it a little bit. Okay, first off, we have to understand some of the traits when you're talking about co-parenting with a narcissist. Okay, first and foremost, the biggest thing that people don't want to hear is narcissists do not care about your kids. Period. That's it. Like you need to be able to get this through your understanding and know and realize that the other person that has treated you awful throughout the whole relationship does not care about your kids. They prioritize their own needs and own desires over the well-being of you, over the well-being of your kids. This includes the kids. Like you just need to be able to hear this. Narcissists do not care about your kids. Okay, typically when we're talking about co-parenting, narcissists care about their image and care about their money more than they do about their kids at all. Co-parenting with a narcissist requires you to understand their patterns, their manipulation, their lack of empathy, and the tendency to be able to use the kids as pawns to control you or to bolster their image, to make them look better. You're going to see this a lot of times the custody agreement, the divorce process of when they're trying to get more time with the kids, but they don't want to spend more time with the kids. They might pass them off to someone else. They might leave them at home, whatever it might be, but it looks better. Like he's able to show up and flaunt the kids to other people so it looks better for other relationships. It looks better because he's a doting dad. It looks better because this looks like the best parent ever. Like a lot of times it is used to bolster their image, to make them look better to the rest of society that they're showing up in this certain way. Now this is where people start getting offended, where people start getting frustrated. Like it's not just that, like all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, you have to remember and you have to understand that an absent parent is better than a toxic one. An absent parent is better than a toxic one. How does that sit with you when I say that? And leave a comment down below so we understand, because you need to be able to see this. A lot of times people will cling to the idea of like, but I want them to have their dad in their life. I want them to have the other parent. I want this to work. You have to understand, once you've been with a narcissist, typically never works. Especially in a positive co-parenting aspect that you see happen in other people's relationships. Think of it this way. A narcissist a lot of times will use visitation, like schedules with the kids, as a means to control you. A lot of times you're going to see this in constantly changing plans, trying to make sure that they're disrupting what you already have. You're like, hey, it's your weekend, and you make a plan. You make a trip. You decide to do something with friends or family, and somehow, randomly, there's other issues on the other side so that it disrupts your routine. It disrupts what's actually going on. This is meant to create tension and also to put in a sense of they're in control over you. Like this also will put them in a place where they'll start to try to turn the kids against you. So like just trying to give a lot of different examples about the manipulation that's going to happen inside this co-parenting aspect with a narcissist. Of like trying to make sure that they pit the kids against you, the kids pit against like each other, all different types of things will happen. Triangulation, all these different pieces where they're trying to undermine the relationship. They're trying to undermine what's happening between you and your children. You need to understand like this is very much one-sided, where the narcissist is not going to give empathy, support to the kids. Not in a loving, healthy, emotionally connected way, because they don't engage that way. So as a result, the kids will look for that from you. While at the same time, a lot of times the other partner will get to the place where they're giving gifts, they're trying to spend time, they're trying to do all these things, but there's not actually quality there. It's just a lot of times transactional. Let me give you this so that I look better. Let me do this so that I look better. Okay? Part of the problem with co-parenting is, like I kind of mentioned before, is it doesn't really work. You see this in like healthy relationships, and you're like, maybe it can be like that. Unfortunately, with a toxic person, it is not about that. It's not about working together. Instead, we have to actually look at setting boundaries and establishing a parallel parenting approach. Okay? Co-parenting a lot of times won't get you anywhere. But when we talk about parallel parenting, this is where you and the other person focus on separate aspects of your child's life and limit all direct communication. So what this typically looks like is they like when the kids are with you, it's one way. When the kids are with him, it's another way. Like that's it. And they don't crisscross. They don't interact. And so it's not like you're doing joint things together. This is where a lot of people struggle because they're like, but I want to be there for the kids. I want to be there to see this. This is the price moving forward that a lot of times you have to pay when trying to parallel parent with a toxic person. Is like that doctor's appointment you're not going to be able to go to because that's on his weekend. The game that you're going to, he might not be able to go to. Whatever it might be. There's lots of nuances, but there's a piece of it understanding that when you have a clear separation, it helps the kids more. Because then they're able to be in an environment where they're not continually getting put in a toxic situation. They can see other role models. They can see other people that are actually leading them forward in how to process their emotions and their feelings. But then you also have to set these clear boundaries, making sure that the other person understands this is what's going on. This is how we're going to communicate. Like one of the best ways is using a co-parenting app because things are tracked. You can use that in like a court setting of like, here's all the communication. Maybe if you can't get the other person on that, then it's email. You might be like, but they won't even do that. You need to understand if you go to the place and you block them and you say, hey, this is triggering me too much, you can contact me through email and I'll respond. You can contact me through the co-parenting app and I'll respond. And then you go no contact with all the other devices. Like you have to make sure you set clear boundaries. The problem is you might have set a clear boundary of like, hey, we're only going to communicate over email, and then you started responding to their calls. Then you started answering. Then you started texting them back. So you showed them that, hey, this is a boundary that I want, and then you didn't stick with it. Now, I'm not saying this to put you down. I'm just saying this to show you that if you are not extremely consistent, the narcissist will obliterate any boundary that you have. So making sure that boundary is very clear and very much laid out. If you can get that in a communication agreement while you're doing custody, while you're going through divorce battles, all those things, that can be incredibly helpful. This will help a lot of times mainly protect your well-being. Also, a lot of times reduce conflict. It reduces it because you're creating space. Like you're putting space between him and you. Of like, okay, now I have an email that just came in. I can wait a couple minutes before I respond to it. I can be able to process what I just read, and then I can figure out what is the best way to be able to respond to this. So you need to understand a narcissist in a co-parenting, a parallel parenting situation is going to want to get you on the phone. It's going to want to get you on FaceTime. It's going to want to get you like on the phone. It's going to want to get you in person. Reason why is the majority of the time a narcissist that can see you or that can interact with you in person knows they can manipulate you, knows that they can twist it, knows that they can control the version of reality that you're actually experiencing. This is why you want to be able to communicate through an email or through co-parenting app, because that's going to help the most. This is the hardest part for people, of understanding that like you cannot let a toxic person back in to where they can interact with you face to face, because they will get you almost every time. Also, when you do that, you are not able to get documentation of what they actually said, of what actually transpired, of how they communicated. Those things can get shown when we have it documented in a co-parenting app or in email. Now, understanding like all of this, there's a huge part that people are like, well, how do I make sure my child doesn't become a narcissist? Or how do I make sure that the influence doesn't make them a narcissist? A lot of times it's helping you get to the place where you prioritize first your own growth. And then that growth, the overflowing of that growth, of you developing you, becomes the next generation's like a blueprint of how you're leading yourself, ends up being how you lead your child. A lot of times people want to fix the kids, fix what things that are going on with them, while they're not actually doing a daily practice of self-care and working on growing themselves. You hear it on the airplanes. You have to put on your oxygen mask first before you put on your child's. It's the same thing in the healing process. Like, you cannot stand as a powerful person to help your children move forward if you're not built up already with the self-care and with the daily things that are going to help put you in a place of confidence and clarity of who you actually are. With this, you have to focus on providing a stable, a loving environment for them and help shield them from the negative behaviors and manipulation that the toxic person is doing. This, a lot of times, is creating an emotionally safe place for the kids. Now, this could be going to the place of seeking support from friends, from family, getting into therapy for the kids, like all these different things. But you need to understand is providing an emotionally safe place for them to be able to process guilt, shame, how to be able to work through that. That is absolutely important. They're not going to get the same emotional safe place on the other side as you can give them. So it is important that you actually help them move forward. If you're at this place where you're struggling with co-parenting, with parallel parenting, love to be able to help you, love to be able to talk to you, like reach out for help. You can go to rawmotivations.com, click on the one-on-ones. Would love to walk you through some of the things that we talk to people about to help them heal. Because the first and foremost is we have to work on your mindset, your thought process to make sure you're in a good place, and that will help you be more effective in setting up boundaries and leading your kids and is standing as a beacon of light to help influence other people to growth and to development.